Good afternoon. I'm John Larson, Chairman of the Ways and Means Subcommittee on Social Security. This afternoon, we gather in the historic Ways and Means Committee room to roll out and introduce Social Security 2100, a sacred trust. Here's the deal. A majority of Americans, including 75% of independents, 78% of Democrats, and 79% of Republicans, feel leaders in Washington do not understand how hard it is for Americans to save for retirement. People's skepticism is validated by congressional inaction. It's been 50 years, let me repeat that, 50 years since Congress has enhanced Social Security benefits and 38 years since it has taken any comprehensive action. This is compounded by the fact that 10,000 baby boomers a day become eligible for Social Security, and millennials will need Social Security more than any generation before. There are 65 million Social Security recipients. And let's be real here. This isn't just a statistic. And what you'll hear today from our members, and what all of you in this audience and viewers and listeners understand, these are your parents. These are your brothers and sisters, your aunts, your uncles, your family, your neighbors. So what's different about this bill and this Congress? What's different is that we have a person on Pennsylvania Avenue who knows and understands that Social Security is a sacred trust. The man from Scranton, Pennsylvania knows firsthand the concerns of working people and understands their worries about financial security. That's why we've combined President Biden's proposals with our Ways and Means initiatives to expand and enhance Social Security benefits. Now, some say our plates are too full here in Congress to take up Social Security. But frankly, it's the plates of working Americans that are full. Our job is to ease their concerns by strengthening the program that 65 million Americans rely on. The COVID-19 pandemic turned our country upside down with record unemployment and devastating losses to families. Many have still not recovered from the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, when they saw their 401k and their private investment become a 101k. During those same times, however, Social Security never missed a payment, not a pension payment, not a spousal or dependent coverage payment, or a disability payment. President Biden clearly understands that, but this is not something he can do through executive order or through the executive branch. It's not something that can be adjudicated by the Supreme Court. It's Congress's responsibility, and Congress alone can ensure benefits keep pace with these changing times. Consider this. In the wealthiest country in the world, 5 million of our fellow Americans who have worked all their lives, paid into the system, receive a below poverty level check from their government. That's a check less than $12,000 to survive on. This is not acceptable, and that's why we are here today with our advocacy groups whose commitment has been essential and will remain so for the passage of this bill. Our new bill increases benefits across the board, improves the cost of living adjustment, increases the special minimum benefit to 125% above the poverty line, and fixes the windfall elimination provision. It has a total of 17 benefit enhancements and also strengthens the trust fund. The bill pays for these common sense enhancements by asking the wealthy making over $400,000 who have been exempt to pay their fair share. Across the board, the public favors enhancements to Social Security, but they don't believe their Congress hears them. We're here today working with the President and our strong allies to demonstrate not only do we hear you, but we're taking action. There's no stronger ally that we've had in this than our Majority Whip, Jim Clyburn, who couldn't be here because of, as you all understand and appreciate, ongoing negotiations that have him at the White House as we speak. But we've also been joined by the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, who has accomplished in his short tenure more than Chairman Doughton during the Great Depression, Wilbur Mills during the Great Society, and Dan Rostenkowski, who worked with then Tip O'Neill to make the improvements in 1983. He's transcended the New Deal and Great Society with actions we have taken up on the Ways and Means Committee. But he understands Social Security from the bottom up. He understands it because he was a benefactor and recipient. The chairman of the Committee on Ways and Means, Richie Neal.
Thanks, John, very much. As you were speaking, I was looking for Wilbur Mills' portrait on the wall there. But thanks for not only your advocacy and your steadfastness, but also this is the room where Social Security was born. And this is the room where Medicare was born, which is an amendment to the Social Security Act. I always remind people that part of Mr. Roosevelt's genius and Mr. Johnson's genius was, as they conceived the idea of Social Security and Medicare, was you could outlive Social Security, you could outlive a private annuity, you can't outlive Social Security. The idea of Social Security was pretty simple in Medicare. In our youth, we pulled the wagon because in our aged years, we might have to sit in the wagon. It was a generational alliance that was made. And I would submit right now, as Congress is debating a series of very important issues, we can argue about what happened as to how wealth concentration in America was caused. It's about technology, it's about globalization, it's about skill set, it's certainly a lot of complicated issues, but what we can't argue about is it happened. It happened, and the evidence is overwhelming as to how it happened as well. So I would suggest that if there are a couple of things that we really can do, it's to embrace John's proposal on Social Security and simultaneously to extend and expand the child credit. Those would be the two bookends of very sound public policy. There are some of us that might not be that great at going to demonstrations, but we would measure our careers by our accomplishments and our achievements, many of which took place, as John noted, in this room. Social Security is predictable, and it is the bedrock of retirement savings for 65 million Americans. The other parts of Social Security for disabled children, I benefited from Social Security when I was 17 years old. I went to college based on Social Security because of my aunt and my grandmother. There are all kinds of stories that bring us to Congress. But one of the stories that I've embraced is it was but for their private retirement system. Neither one of them was wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. But they knew they were getting that check on the first of the month, because that's when it used to arrive. And you could build around it. But it was that guarantee that allowed you to put in place not only retirement options, but in the case of us, to have an aunt and a grandmother who took in 3 children. That's the reality of what was accomplished with Social Security. So what John is putting forth here today, and thank you on the WEP as well, That's been a bit of a challenge, as you know, going forward, and the better the explanations are, the more people understand it. There are 8 states that are impacted by it. But I would remind all that we have this rare moment, right now, this rare moment to accomplish seismic achievements. And this is the time to do it. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. We're going to go a little bit out of order as we wait for some of our speakers to come. And as you'll see, we're changing these signs as we go. But if you could leave that, Ryan, just for a second, Mr. Niels. I just want to explain to some of our viewers what we've done. Every member of Congress, Democrat, Republican, and Independent, will receive a card like this. In the Senate, it's going to be a little different than the House, but what it does is point out how many recipients are actually in your congressional district. Not only how many recipients are in there, but how much they receive on a monthly basis. On a monthly basis. Why? Because that money goes right back into the community. There's no greater economic stimulus. And imagine Congress hasn't enhanced it in more than 50 years. You can also see how much money comes into your state as well. Nobody knows that as well as the vice chair of the Committee on Social Security, the gentleman who hails from the great state of New Jersey, Bill Pascrell, and I'm going to ask him to come up with Jan Schakowsky. Jan, as all of you know here, is the co-founder of the select committee that we have on age, and has done just an outstanding job. So Jane and Bill, if you could come forward.
Okay, go ahead, Bill. Go, Bill.
So many great things have happened in this room. And I hope what we're talking about today not only happens, but becomes a real reality, which we've been talking about. And if we let this great program go on its own, it will run out of money eventually, like any trust. So we can either do something about it, really, or talk about it for the next 15 years. You could not find a more forceful champion, though, for Social Security than John Larson. I don't say that simply because he's a friend of mine. I say it because I've seen him operate. We're unified. And we're committed to the plan that strengthens Social Security for today's seniors and provides solvency for generations to come. So as soon as you talk about solvency, as soon as you talk about the future, you're talking about, well, you need some money to do it. And let's not kid ourselves. So I'm going to tell you one thing today, John. I hope you remember it tomorrow. And that is, if you don't agree on reinforcing this greatest program, in my district in North Jersey, Patterson, Clifton, Passaic, Englewood, Fort Lee, in my district, almost 50% of the people rely on this check to live day to day. And that's not very different from a lot of places in this greatest country of all. Social Security is one of our nation's greatest success stories. After 86 years, it still stands as a monument to decency, dignity, and the birthright of hardworking Americans. Yes, a birthright. It has come under unrelenting attack. Without aggressive action, it lurches toward insolvency. We have a sacred responsibility to assure its preservation. No one knows that better than John Larson. He's done his homework. More than 120,000 people in my district rely on this an earned benefit. Hear what I'm saying? Earned benefit. Why do we consciously not say that? Earned benefit. Oh, it's another giveaway program. Well, I'm tired. Let me tell you something, John. I'm tired of being called a socialist. God bless socialists. I'm not a socialist. I don't want to be a socialist. And the only way this program becomes solvent is if we make it solvent. It's not going to happen by wishing it. Every month, 120,000 people in my district. And that number grows daily. Chairman Larson's landmark legislation provides fully paid for benefit enhancements through the end of the century, the 21st century. Among its many improvements, this bill eliminates the unnecessary 5-month benefits waiting period. It would ensure Americans suffering with permanent disorders like Huntington's disease, they get their help they need without red tape or delay. This is not the post office. Our plan keeps President Biden's promise to not raise taxes on middle-class families. This is a no-brainer. With unified control of government, we must get this done for the American people. No excuses. And now I would like to turn this over to my good friend from California, Congresswoman Linda Sanchez. Oh, no.
No, wait, no, you're right. You're right, Bill.
I was? Well, once a day isn't bad. Come up here, Linda, I'm sorry.
That's okay, I'll be done.
Jan-
Thank you, Billy, and my apologies to Jan, but you will be next. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here. Get myself situated. Thank you for being here. It really is an honor to support Chairman Larson's landmark legislation, and he has fought for this legislation tirelessly. He has introduced it in the last 4 Congresses and continues to push to get this done. The Social Security program is an essential safety net program for Americans. We know this, but it's particularly important for elderly Latinos in America. I know firsthand because my own parents, who immigrated from Mexico, worked their entire lives, paid into this program in order to earn the benefit. And while many rely on Social Security for financial security in their later years, over 80% of Latinos rely on Social Security as their primary source of retirement income, the highest of any demographic group. So it really is a benefit that touches Latino families more than most. Social Security is a critical source of income for both middle and lower wage earners when the unexpected happens. Events like losing a spouse are devastating, and the resulting reduction in income from Social Security can compound that pain. And that's why I'm proud that the 2100 Act also includes one of my highest priorities, which is providing peace of mind for widows and widowers through a stronger benefit for them. Latino families like my own would be among the hardest hit if we do not continue to preserve and strengthen this critical program. The Social Security 2100 Act does just that. This bill lifts more Latinos out of poverty by increasing and expanding benefits across the board. And it improves the cost of living adjustment to ensure that Social Security's modest earned benefits keep up with the rising costs in today's economy. Because everybody knows you cannot buy today with a dollar what you could 10 years ago with a dollar, much less 50 years ago with a dollar. And that's why I'm proud to support the Social Security 2100 Act. It ensures that those who have worked their entire lives can retire with a sense of dignity and some financial security. So I want to thank my colleague, Mr. Larson, for inviting me to be here today to champion something that truly is a benefit that will reach down into communities and help relieve poverty and help people live out their final days in dignity. And now I will turn it over to my colleague, Jan Schakowsky, who, as Mr. Larson mentioned, chairs the Committee on Aging.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Oh, hello. There we go. Thank you. Okay. John Larson, I am so proud to be an original co-sponsor of Social Security 2100, and then it also it says it's a sacred trust. It is. I am very proud to be the co-chair and one of the founders of the Democratic Task Force on Aging and Families, and have worked for decades, even in the 80s when I was director of the Illinois State Council of Senior Citizens, to protect and defend Social Security. Here's what the annual average Social Security benefit is right now. This is every month, $1,850. $1,543 a month. That's it. That's it. The average Social Security benefit, the majority of Americans that use Social Security actually are getting, are right now, am I wrong? Somebody's shaking their head. 1,005. Anyway, that they rely on Social Security for more than half their income, and a large percent of millions of Americans rely on Social Security for 90% or more of their income. Let's remember when Social Security passed, we were in the middle of a depression. Can we afford to do something better for Social Security right now? The richest country in the world, absolutely we can. And I want to tell you, I dare anybody, any politician, to try and do something about Social Security. When George Bush tried to privatize it, that was also defeated right here in this room. Women especially benefit from this legislation because you know that women often have to go out of the workforce in order to take care of loved ones, children or parents. And what this legislation does is say that there will be a credit for women who have to leave the workforce and enhance their Social Security. All people will get an increase in Social Security benefits. And finally, let me also say that public employees also suffer under the current benefit, the current Social Security plan right now. We will see that the subtraction that comes from public servants, public employees, from their pension decreases their Social Security. That will be fixed, finally, for public employees. So we are going to be helping millions and millions of Americans to get what they need and deserve. Well, one last thing. When Social Security was founded, it was on three different stools. One was savings. That's pretty much gone. One was on pensions. Those are pretty much gone. And the third was Social Security. So nowadays, it is Social Security that Americans rely on. We can do better, and we will, through John Larson's legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Well, as we mentioned before, 10,000 baby boomers a day become eligible for Social Security. And we also mentioned that the shocking thing is that millennials will need it more than baby boomers. In this Congress, we're honored that two people who have participated thoroughly in the development of this legislation, who are both millennials and strong advocates, are Connor Lamb from Western Pennsylvania, and from the heart of New York City, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I would like them to come forward, two people who have unique experiences, two people who represent millennials but also understand the importance of Social Security. Alexandria, Connor, would you please come forward?
Thank you so much, Representative Larson. And it is true what Bill said. There are few people who hustle in Congress for Social Security the way that you do. So I want to thank you for that. You know, when I was a kid, I thought Social Security was largely a benefit for retirees, and especially young people. It's so important for us to know that Social Security is there for all of us. When we lose a parent, a spouse, or, God forbid, have an unexpected diagnosis or accident that leads us to have a disability that we rely on Social Security for to help us ease our way through. When I was a kid, my dad passed away due to an unexpected cancer diagnosis. I was the daughter of a domestic worker, and Social Security checks helped my family through. It's why my brother and I were able to go to college. It's why I felt confident while I was at college that my mom would be able to have something to eat. And to have that social safety net isn't just good for us individually for peace of mind. It helps us feel like we are part of a society that respects our elders and values our vulnerable. After I graduated college, in the wake of the Great Recession, it was devastating for working families like mine and my family. And after, I worked in a restaurant as a waitress. Every year, when I did my taxes, I saw how much I contributed to Social Security as a waitress, thousands of dollars per year. What we want to do is make Social Security better, to expand it, to cover people like my mom, who left her job to care for my dad while he was ill, to raise the age of young people up to the age of 26, so that those kids that are working through college can also get a little bit of that leg up. And we want to do that by asking the wealthy to pay into Social Security the same way that I did when I was a waitress. It's pretty simple, it's pretty basic, and it's a way that we can make our society better by feeling like we are part of a society that cares for each other no matter what, no matter our job, no matter our status, and no matter what happens to us in life. And that, to me, is part of being a wealthy, prosperous, modern, and compassionate society. And I thank Representative Larson for championing this legislation, and to all of our colleagues for ensuring its passage and its continued support. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Chairman Larson asked me to address also the fact that hundreds of thousands of our nation's veterans, particularly disabled veterans, benefit from the Social Security program every year. There's a misconception that veterans aren't part of Social Security because we have the Veterans Administration with its own disability benefits, but that's not true. Social Security plays such an important role in the lives not only of all of our constituents locally, but of veterans who have given such a great sacrifice to the country that many of them became completely disabled in the course of their service. And we have to remember that. You know, on both sides of the aisle and on both ends of Capitol Hill, you hear members talk about their commitment to keeping our promises to veterans and honoring veterans. But those in the opposite party who would see Social Security be cut, who talk about it as a quote-unquote entitlement program, are talking about the needs of our nation's veterans as well, and they're on the wrong side of that issue. One of the reasons that veterans are so venerated and the experience of serving in the military is so honored in our society is that there's a perception, and I think it's an accurate one, that people who serve in the military mean what they say, and that they keep their word, and they can be trusted. In the Marine Corps, where I served, the motto is Semper Fidelis, and they constantly remind you when you join that Semper means always, and always means not negotiable. The commitment that our nation has made to the Social Security program and to the beneficiaries of it is as non-negotiable in the year 2021 as it was when Roosevelt created it. Several have mentioned that millennials are going to need Social Security more than their predecessors, but the unfortunate fact is they believe in it less. Every time a poll is done on this subject, it proves what we all know from our own experience, that something like 3/4 of millennials worry strongly about the future of Social Security, and about half of them believe they're never going to collect it. And I think that's because of an organized campaign throughout our lifetime to discredit these programs as economic inequality increased in our country. But again, our commitment to this program in my generation in Congress is as strong today as it has ever been. We're not going to let it go down. This bill is the opportunity that we have to make sure that it survives for us and for our children, that continue supporting so many families like the ones that you heard about today. I just want to close by also saying we have a number of advocates in the room who've devoted their entire career to the importance of this program, and they know how it has benefited hardworking people of all shapes and sizes all around our country. And I want to thank them for their constant work on behalf of my constituents, our nation's veterans, and everyone else who's been mentioned today. And Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Connor and Alexandria. I think America's in pretty good hands. It's always good in good hands on the Committee on Ways and Means, especially when you have advocates like Terry Sewell and Gwen Moore and Brian Higgins, who are our next speakers. I've been to Alabama and to have had the opportunity to address Terry's constituents, where they know her as a tireless and compassionate worker on their behalf in making sure that we secure Social Security. Terry Sewell and Gwen and Brian, could you come up also?
There's no more visionary and compassionate and thoughtful leader on Social Security as Chairman Lawson. I want to thank you for leading us in this presser today and for being such a leading advocate on behalf of our seniors and really everyone. As we've heard, Social Security is not an entitlement. No, it is an earned benefit that every month those who are working in America pay into. And we want to make sure that it's solvent so that when we get to be of age, that we get to draw on our Social Security as well. I also want to thank you, John, for coming to Montgomery, Alabama, and talking to the seniors in my district. They still ask for that young man from Connecticut to come back.
Appreciate you, Mr. Chair.
That's a hazard for inviting John to your district. Caution to all the rest of you that he was well loved and well respected and talked so profoundly about Social Security and really breathed life into so many seniors about the dignity of receiving Social Security. So thank you. As a proud member of the Ways and Means Social Security Subcommittee, I know that every worker deserves to retire with dignity after a lifetime of work. And as co-chair of the Ways and Means Racial Equity Initiative, along with my colleague, Congressman Horsford and Congressman Gomez, I can tell you that Social Security is also an equity issue. I have over 157,000 Social Security beneficiaries in Alabama's 7th Congressional District. It includes 36,000 disabled workers, 12,000 widowers, and 16,000 children. For many of these recipients, the modest Social Security benefit that they receive every month is the only retirement that they have. In fact, for my seniors, well over 60% of them rely solely on Social Security as their primary retirement benefit. For too long, communities of color have received the lowest benefits. In places like Birmingham, Montgomery, and Selma, my hometown, a history of economic discrimination in the workplace has caused Black workers to take jobs and careers that are physically demanding. And when you also consider that these underserved communities often lack access to quality, affordable health care, it is no surprise that many workers are forced to claim early retirement, causing a permanent reduction in their Social Security benefit. This is simply unacceptable. We can and we must do better to increase benefits for socially disadvantaged communities that are more likely to withdraw their benefit early and often depend on Social Security as their only source of income. That's why I'm so proud to join Chairman Larson in introducing the Social Security 2100 Act. This critical bill will expand and strengthen Social Security to ensure that current and new beneficiaries can continue to benefit from this important lifeline. And it is a lifeline for so many. It also provides caregiver credits to ensure that caregivers are not penalized for taking time out of the workforce to care for children and for loved ones. And the best part is that this bill is fully paid for by asking the wealthiest among us to pay their fair share. Every worker deserves to retire with dignity after a lifetime of work. And with this bill, we're investing in our greatest asset, our people. I believe very fervently, because of the equity issue around Social Security, that this is indeed a civil rights issue. It is important that we note not only Latino families, but African American families disproportionately depend upon Social Security as the primary method of payment that they receive in retirement. Because of that, I stand firmly right beside Chairman Larson in fighting not only for this act, but for the dignity of work and the dignity of our seniors receiving such an important lifeline. Thank you.
It's just such a thrill to be here with Chairman Neal, Chairman Larson, all of my colleagues, and to be a member of the Ways and Means Committee. What drew me to the Ways and Means Committee, and I was on a path for 14 years to get on the Ways and Means Committee, was really behind my organizing principle to take care of the most vulnerable in our society. And of course, those folks who benefit from the Social Security Act are among those people that I am here to serve. And so I am so delighted to be an original co-sponsor and a co-author of the Social Security 2100 Act with Chairman John Larson. We're going to improve the fiscal outlook of Social Security, support those who are more financially vulnerable when they get older, or when they are disabled, or when they're children. We're going to include, as Terry Sewell has indicated, people who are particularly vulnerable, and those are women and people of color. I am so delighted that the chairman really listened to a freshman on the Ways and Means Committee and included so many important priorities and ideas that I had in my Social Security bill. One of the most important things that I think was important was to renew the student benefit of retired, deceased, or disabled workers. We have heard so many of our colleagues on both sides of the aisle wax on about how they benefited from being able to go to college on Social Security. And here we are in an era where we know that you can't get a job without some post-secondary education, and we have eliminated the student benefit. But Chairman Larson, in his great wisdom, has restored this into the Social Security 2100, and this is a proven way to encourage young adults to pursue higher education to support students of color, first generation and low-income students, and families with parents working higher risk, blue-collar workers and women. This is such vital legislation for equity. It also includes another initiative that I've championed, an increase for the oldest seniors. How dare you live 20 years beyond when you became eligible? You live too doggone long if you become 85 years old, and your needs for resources increase. You know, you can no longer get out there necessarily and shovel your snow or cut your grass. So this provision would greatly benefit individuals who are 85 and older, usually women, who've outlived their savings and are at a greater risk of poverty, to increase those benefits. I hear something in my ear here, so I better hurry up. So, you know, I've always been a champion, whether it's through the Earned Income Tax Credit, CTC, or Social Security, expanding the definition of work. And I'm so happy that some version of my instinct and proposal to really provide for those folks who have lost Social Security benefits or quarters because they have been providing care for elders or disabled people has been included in this legislation. So, you know, as we work to build back better, let's don't forget the stuff that worked already. And that means advancing the Social Security 2100 Act to help ensure that all Americans can retire and age with dignity. And just so you know, Terry, some of us have already reached that age.
Thank you very much, John Larson. 65 million beneficiaries. 22 million seniors would be living in poverty without Social Security. 1.3 million kids in this country would be living in poverty without Social Security. John Larson's persistence, the persistence of the advocates who have been in this room many, many times, fighting for this program, is greatly appreciated. Max Richmond, lifelong commitment to this program. They say that we can't afford it. Brown University, Watson Institute just came out with a report that said America spent $6 trillion in 3 Middle East wars. Not paid for, not budgeted. This is a benefit that will enhance the purchasing power of seniors and kids in this country. Where the purchasing power is strengthened, it creates demand. Where demand is created, it creates growth. Where growth is created, it creates prosperity. 3 wars. The economics of war suck. What we need is value investments in America, in Americans. That's called nation building. Not in Afghanistan, not in Iraq, but nation building right here at home, starting with our most vulnerable people. John Larson, you've been a champion of this bill. We are here because of your idealism, because of your persistence, because of your stick-to-itiveness. And we are all indebted for the great work that you do and continue to do.
Thank you, Brian. Our great colleague, John Lewis, said that Social Security is a civil rights issue. He was right about that. Our next 3 speakers, we're going to hear from a guy who I proudly call the voice of God, Danny Davis. Nobody quite has a voice like that. And someone who probably should have been a preacher, because every time I listen to this young man talk about what's going on in his district, I'm motivated. And also Earl Blumenauer from Oregon, all 3 of whom played a key role in writing this legislation. So if I could have you 3 gentlemen come forward, and then we'll close with Joe Courtney and Tim Ryan.
Thank you, Chairman Larson. You know, I believe very strongly that you can determine the greatness of a society by how well it treats its young, how well it treats its old, and how well it looks after those who have difficulty caring for themselves. I represent a large urban area. More than 100,000 of my residents rely on Social Security, but many of them migrated from the rural South, where they worked for minimum wages. My father lived with me when he was 92 years old. His Social Security check was $567 a month. That was all that he had. That was what he got. And that's what millions of individuals, especially those who've worked minimum wage, that's all they get. And they have difficulty deciding, do they pay rent? Do they get their prescription filled? Do they get food? John Larson, Chairman John Larson, has been unrelentless in his effort to improve and enhance Social Security benefits. I am proud to join with him. I am a strong supporter of this bill and urge everybody, if you were listening to the voice of God, God would tell you, pass improvements for Social Security.
The late, great Mo Udall once said at the end of a very long program that, fortunately for you, everything that could be said has been said. Unfortunately, not everybody has said it. So let me just make two brief observations about things that you may not know as part of the Larson, everybody else, co-sponsored bill. Number one, that it will adjust the inflationary increment so that people are not subjected to income tax, making it a significant increase to protect middle-income workers not paying taxes on Social Security. And you've heard about the unrelenting attack on Social Security by some who think it actually is the same people that wanted to privatize it. John's legislation would require that everybody gets an actual statement every year reminding them of what they've got and how it got there, rather than something just posted online. It's important to make those connections. But most important, it's critical to move forward with legislation like this. I appreciate John's tenacity. You know, Congress runs on cliffs. The deadline is when we start dealing with problems. And we've had looming cliff for Social Security, where we're going to see massive cuts for people because we have not kept pace with the funding requirements. The longer we delay, the harder it will be to do, more expensive and disruptive. And some say, well, Congress would never come up to this deadline and not replenish the fund. Look at what goes on around here. It's possible. It's possible. But because of John's focus, the legislation, and my colleagues who are committed to moving forward, this is something that will be front and center. And I hope we will see action in this Congress, long overdue. Our seniors deserve it. America deserves it. And John, thank you for your tenacity.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephen Horsford. I'm proud to represent Nevada's 4th Congressional District, which includes Las Vegas and 6 rural counties. And I'm so proud to join with Chairman Larson and the other members who are gathered here today for the support and progress on Social Security and the seniors who deserve these benefits that have been earned. Chairman Larson is about the only person who can bring together such a multi-generational, multi-ethnic, broad spectrum of ideological views around this one issue. And it's because it's about people. For me, it's a reminder of who it is we're fighting for back home in our districts and the people that we represent. I think I've shared this story with you, John. My grandmother and mom came to the United States as immigrants from Trinidad. And after my grandmother worked as a domestic and a hairstylist, she suffered a debilitating stroke and was in a coma for 6 months. And when she came out, she was paralyzed. Well, back in 1973, that meant she needed 24-hour care and had to be in a nursing home. But for Social Security and Medicaid, my grandmother would not have had the quality of life that she did. She lived for 27 years until she passed away in April of 2000. I didn't understand as a little boy when I would go visit her bedside at that nursing home that it was Social Security that provided those benefits. And I remember telling her, one day, Grandma, I'll be in a position to help. Well, now I'm a member of the House of Representatives on Ways and Means, and we are going to deliver our promise to all of our seniors. In my district, that's 144,000 Social Security recipients who receive on average about $1,400 a month. Who can live on $1,400 a month? While cost of living continues to rise, it's barely enough to even afford the rent in Las Vegas. Seniors worked hard and they paid into Social Security for decades because of our promise that it would support them in retirement. But sadly, today, Social Security benefits are not keeping up with cost. So we must honor our promise to keep them whole. Back home in my district, I hear from seniors who tell me all the time just how hard it is to keep up. One senior who earns just over $1,100 told me she can't live on that. I'm struggling. When she receives her annual property tax bill, it wipes out half of her income for the month. To make ends meet, she is forced to take on a reverse mortgage on her home that chips away at the home equity and the generational wealth that she can pass on to her children. We owe our seniors better than this. And while earlier this month, the Social Security Administration announced a historic cost of living increase that gives our seniors an average of $92 more per month, it's a good start, but seniors are counting on Congress to go further to protect their retirement and to keep Social Security solvent for decades to come. And with the Social Security 2100 Act, we have an opportunity to increase benefits for seniors and to protect low-income workers from retiring into poverty. This is what Democrats do when we're in the majority of the House, the Senate, and the White House. When the Republicans were in charge, they used this room to pass tax cuts for the very wealthy and for big corporations. When Democrats are in charge, we deliver for people. And Social Security 2100 is one of those bills. And I want to commend my colleagues who have brought this generational focus, because for too long we have pitted one generation against the next when we need to be looking out for all of us. And young people, today it's seniors who took care of us, and now it's our turn to deliver for them. Thank you, Chairman Larson, for your leadership, and to all my colleagues. I look forward to getting this bill to President Biden's desk.
So that we, as Social Security is a sacred trust, two people who understand that extraordinarily well are Joe Courtney from my home state, who I served with Joe in the Connecticut General Assembly. During that time, Joe was regarded as an authority on health care and all the implications of health on society. He's brought that expertise and knowledge to Congress, along with an aptitude of understanding and commitment about what people really and truly need. My good friend and colleague from the 2nd Congressional District in Connecticut, Joe Courtney, followed by our dear friend and the next senator from Ohio, Tim Ryan.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, John, for the invitation to allow an outsider who's not on Ways and Means to be here today, along with Tim Ryan. This is an important milestone. One thing that has not been mentioned is the fact that on the day of introduction, almost 200 members are original co-sponsors, which for a comprehensive bill like this, which is making a major muscle movement in terms of shifting resources to people who need it, and away from people who can afford to pay for it, to get almost 200 members of Congress is a stunning achievement. I've known John for 35 years. It doesn't surprise me that much because I know how he operates. I mean, every detail of this bill, including these Social Security cards, has been meticulously developed and prepared. We've heard from a couple members who he visited their districts. That's just the tip of the iceberg. He has crisscrossed this country over the last 3 or 4 years. And not so much just to sort of create a press conference, but it actually, and I've had this experience with John at a town hall we had on his bill, is what you actually see when he comes and explains the bill is that the audience reacts just so overwhelmingly. I mean, you can hear a pin drop when he's sort of walking through the various provisions of the bill, whether it's the revision of the COLA, about sort of rebasing the program so that people will be taken out of poverty, increasing the threshold for taxation, which, again, each one of these items, the response is what I think is the powerful reason why members sign up for this bill, which, again, is in some respects kind of a scary thing when you're talking about raising the payroll tax in big numbers. But the fact is that John has done his homework, and we are so lucky to have him leading the charge on this incredibly important and necessary bill. I will foot stomp just 2 items. I do sit on the Education and Labor Committee. We have almost $3 trillion of student loan debt. One of the problems that created that was that in 1983, when the dependent benefit for students was dropped from age 22 to age 18, that created a big hole in the budgets of young people starting to go to college. It coincided with the Pell Grant program basically just being flatlined. So you have less help in terms of educational benefit, less help in terms of Social Security benefit, and tuition increases that have been just far in excess of inflation year in and year out. Restoring the age 22 eligibility for Social Security dependent student beneficiaries is going to take a big bite out of future students' ability to pay for college. 7 million young Americans are on Social Security, and restoring that age 22 threshold is going to go a long way to trying to help solve this problem, which, again, we've got a lot more work to do. And the e-COLA, which Steve mentioned, which again is to revise the cost of living adjustment. The 6% increase, which was just announced by Social Security, a lot of that is just going to get chewed up by the Medicare Part B premium, which will coincide with it. And that is why when I am talking to Social Security folks back home, they're not really that excited about the 6% increase, because they know they're going to take a hit on the Medicare premium, as well as the fact that so many other items of their household budget far exceed the inflation rate. So having a COLA that actually reflects the true cost of what it means to be a senior in this country, who have, again, out-of-pocket costs, particularly for prescription drugs, but for many other items that are not reflected in the COLA, is really going to align this program so that people can actually live with dignity and affordability in terms of their retirement years. So again, bravo to John Larson and the great work that he's done in terms of constructing this bill, but also constructing the really impressive, huge wave of support that, again, is going to begin today, and that's going to succeed in getting this bill through the House and to the President's desk. Thank you very much.
When someone very close to you passes away, and it could be a parent or a grandparent, and I remember when my grandparents passed away, I can't remember if it was my grandfather or grandmother, but you have to go clean the house out, right? It's one of those gut-wrenching events that you have to participate in, whether you like it or not. And it's heartbreaking, but at the same time, you'll go through their stuff and you'll find things that remind you of your family legacy and all of these other, things that it may remind you of. And I was going through my grandparents' drawers, and I remember finding a little black book, and it was tattered and worn out and faded. And I thought, what is this? And I opened it up, and my mom's 100% Italian, and they were Italian, and it was this little black book from my great-grandfather who came over on a boat from Italy, from a little town called Volsini. And I opened up the book, and it said at the top, the Volsini Club. And my great-grandfather was like the treasurer of this little group in Niles, Ohio. And it had all these Italian names listed on the left side in the months of the year at the top. And it would say Dominic Guerra, January, $1. February, $1. March, nothing. April, nothing. May, nothing. $1. Just sporadic. It was a mutual aid book before there were programs like this, that literally steel workers who maybe worked 2 or 3 days a week during the Depression, they'd throw $1 in if they could to try to hold the community together. And that's what undergirds this program are the values of dignity in your retirement, that everybody matters. It doesn't matter what your job is. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter whether you're white, black, or brown. You will be taken care of. And this bill that John crafted is grounded in those values of compassion and caring about each other and the common good and using some common sense to get us there. And I'll just say, you know, what we've seen over the last 40 or 50 years, and it's been touched upon in this conference here today, CEO pay has gone up 1,300% since the 70s. 1,300%. And we saw a week or two ago, the top 10% of the wealthiest people in the country own 90% of the stocks in the country. We can't keep going like this. And this is a bold move for working people. And when you come from places like where I come from, a tax cut that's in here for working people, getting rid of the windfall elimination provision and government offset, these are things we hear about every single week we go home. And pensions that are lost, and the company goes bankrupt, and they got to go to the PBGC, and they get a huge cut, and then they don't know what they're going to do, and then somebody dies, and then there's a widow or widower there, and this bill takes care of them. John, you've not missed a beat in this bill. I mean, I could go through our case book in my congressional office of the calls we get. This bill addresses working people, and it honors them for their work because this is an earned benefit. Globalization, automation, lost pensions, lost jobs, lost manufacturing, erosion of the middle class. I think this is a bold step on top of the rescue package and other things that we've done to start righting the ship. And I commend Congressman Larson, I commend the Ways and Means Committee for having the guts to take this bold step on taking care of our workers again. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, and I wanted to especially acknowledge the staff of the Ways and Means Committee who are so instrumental and work day in and day out to make sure that we're not only able to talk about these ideas, but we're able to translate them into law. I want to thank Catherine Olson and Alicia Walker and TJ Sutcliffe for all of their work. Our legal alleged counsel also, Justin Gross, who's been outstanding, and of course, the actuary for Social Security and his team, Steve Goss, who did such work to put this in front of us. A number of very positive things have been said today, but not enough can be said about the endorsers. You just see a handful of, including the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, Social Security Works, the Alliance for Retired Americans, Paralyzed Veterans of America, Strengthen Social Security, the Leadership Council of Aging Organizations, the NAACP, the National Organization for Women, Latinos for Secure Retirement, are but a few of the more than 120 organizations. These are the individuals. These are the advocates who have put forward these ideas and their tireless efforts to impress upon Congress that now is the time to act. And now is the time for us in this historic venue where Social Security was birthed and where privatization was thwarted. It's now time to expand benefits so that everyday, hard-working, decent Americans who work hard and play by the rules and contribute weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly through the payroll tax to this great program that has never missed a payment and stands as hallmark to what good governance is about and what the American people both need and richly deserve. I want to thank all of my colleagues who have contributed immensely to the writing of this bill, to the input, their suggestions, and for being here today. Now the work begins and we can get started. We're looking forward to a hearing in November, and we're looking forward to a markup and then passage of the bill. Our goal is to put this on President Biden's desk because nobody understands better than the President of the United States that Social Security is a sacred trust between the people and its government. Thank you so much for being here today. We greatly appreciate it.
Excellent.
Well done. All right.